All right. Good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. It's 12 p.m. here in Australia. We'll give it another couple of minutes for some people if they're struggling, but we'll get kicked off pretty soon. What I've done, I've just uploaded an ebook there. I'll talk about that later. It's a bit of a sales strategy handbook for startups, for B2B founders. You might find it handy in thinking about creating a differentiated sales strategy that's different to what's currently in the market. And it's through much experience that I've learned. I learned that strategy working for a startup since 2015. So you might find it useful. Please download it, have a look at it. If you've got any questions, send me a message. Happy to answer them if you like as well. So we'll give it one more minute and then we'll get going. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat here. I'll get to them during the session. And I've also got a poll to ask you later on. And I actually got a couple of questions that if you wouldn't mind answering too, that'd be great. So it's 12:05 from my watch, so we might get kicked off. So thank you for tuning in today. This webinar is really about helping you understand what's really needed to be effective in B2B lead generation. It's actually can be quite difficult, particularly for new businesses. So what I want to do is address some fundamental truths so you have a clear understanding of what's needed, and then from there, help you build out your strategy based on the amount of time that you can dedicate to it first and foremost. That's the most critical part. And then to where your audience sits. So we'll go through 20 different strategies, how to visualize it, and we'll go from there. So the first question I have today is, I have two questions for you. One is, what brings you to this webinar? If you wouldn't mind typing that in the chat. And two is, what gaps do you have in your lead generation knowledge? And what I'll do is I'll aim to answer those questions during the course of today. So if you could take a couple of minutes while we're going through this session just to answer those, that'd be really appreciative. And I'll come back to those a little later. I've also got a poll here as well that talks about do you get distracted from doing regular lead generation, which is really important as well. Right. So the agenda today is how to choose the right lead generation strategy for your startup. Then we're going to talk about the power of visualizing your strategy. Then we're going to go through the 20 different lead generation strategies as well, the advantages and disadvantages. Now, I'll brush over this relatively quickly in this session, but what I have is a takeaway that you'll be able to download from here, and it has everything that we speak about in a PDF. So you won't miss out on anything. So don't worry about taking too many screenshots. You'll get a copy of this today as well. Now, and then there's really only 3 factors that we can control when it comes to lead generation. And it's really important to understand that. So we want to make it as simple as possible to get results. Then what I'm going to do is have a look at cold email outreach, like how much effort is actually required to actually be successful in using that as a short-term lead generation strategy, which most people will have dabbled in or will dabble in the future. And then I'll talk about a boot camp we have coming up, and then answer any questions that you have. So if everyone's okay, what we'll do is we'll get into it. So what you're going to learn today is the truth about what is actually needed to make lead generation successful, and the different types of short, medium, and long-term strategies. And one of the biggest challenges that I see is people try to adopt medium and long-term strategies and try to get a short-term result. It's actually very, very difficult to do that. I actually worked with a founder, and what they did was actually setting medium-term strategies and were changing those strategies every 3 months because the results weren't coming in. And it was trying to build a house on a sand foundation. It was just, we couldn't get purchase. Very, very difficult. Thanks, Graham. Also, is why your strategy should revolve around the time that you can dedicate weekly, and also the three factors, and then how much effort is going to be needed in cold email. So who am I? So my mission is to help B2B startups see the truth of actually what's fundamentally required to consistently win clients. Most people, particularly in the sales space, talk in false promises and don't actually speak in pragmatic logic and what's actually needed to actually win clients. It's very difficult, and we need to address that. Most salespeople are optimistic or optimistic in the results that they'll get. But I think it's a balance between being optimistic, thinking that the next person is going to say yes, but being realistic to say, hey, it's going to take a lot more work. It's going to take a lot more work than we originally thought. And if we think that way, we're going to do a lot more effort and then hopefully increase the results. Anthony, to learn the best way I can onboard brands that are both my network and outside of my network. No worries. Thanks, Anthony. So I started selling B2B SaaS here for an Australian tech company called Redeye back in 2015. So we were approaching big enterprise clients, water utilities, power utilities here in Australia, US, and other countries. Now, back then, there was global no cloud policies when it come to B2B SaaS technology. So it was very, very difficult. The ticket price, especially for the SaaS company I was working for, was more than 20,000 per month. It was somewhere around 25 to 45,000. $45,000 per month on a 5-year deal with about $600,000 or $700,000 implementation was the biggest deal that I was responsible for. So we're looking somewhere in the realm of $2 million to $3.5 million were the contracts that I was dealing with. And it really exposed the rocks in every aspect of a failed sales strategy. And that is what is really motivated me to help other B2B SaaS founders, is to learn those lessons, hard lessons that we went through. Now, in that journey there, plus others, I was being responsible for closing more than $30 million in B2B sales. And I learned selling B2B technology is completely different to selling from in other industries. Whereas B2B SaaS technologies, we're selling outcomes or business process improvements, not actually products. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to selling for B2B founders is, what are you really selling? You're selling the hole and not the drill. And I learned if you can make a complex process more simple, more sales are made, because you can create a repeatable strategy or process. And all this starts with lead generation. And I've been working with B2B SaaS companies now since 2020 and actually helping them define the differentiated sales strategy, and then applying a lead generation strategy that suits, that fills opportunities into that pipeline so they can close deals over the longer term. And I also wrote a book called Startup Sales Secrets. It's based off core principles. And I actually put a link here in the chat. We can download a copy of that. It's about 80 pages. It's not massive. It's just to give you some context of how to think about sales strategy for your startup different to what's on the market today. So I wanted to start, I always start with this triangle when I do a webinar. So most people, when they talk about implementing lead generation strategy or sales sales process, what they're doing is, let me just change that. So what they're doing is only speaking about changing the process. But what they're not doing is addressing the underlying truths that exist in the industry, or the underlying truths that we're up against when it comes to lead generation or sales. Now, because they don't address the underlying truths, their beliefs don't change. Their beliefs haven't changed, and their behaviors haven't changed. And the process is just the tip of the spear. It actually leads to lackluster results. So today, if anything, what I want you to do is understand the real truth behind what is actually needed to create a successful lead generation strategy. And it's by addressing those truths will help you change your beliefs and behaviors. And then you'll be able to implement a process that will start getting you results quicker and get better and better and better over time as you transcend through the market, through the technology adoption lifecycle. So what is the truth about B2B lead generation? And how is this going to change what you're doing today? So really, first and foremost, finding leads is hard. It is really, really difficult. And it's especially difficult for new businesses. It's hard to get someone interested in what you're doing when you have no case studies, when they're 0 to 1. That going from 0 to 1 is really difficult. Going from 1 to 2 is really difficult. Going to the first 50 is difficult, but it's especially difficult for startups. Now, depending on the stage of your startup, your approach, your messaging may change as well. So, what works yesterday may not work today, may not work tomorrow, may be different in different markets. We have to be prepared for that. And you have to be aware that your competitors has some advantages in some areas. It does not make sense as a B2B business or a startup or any capacity really is to go head to head with competitors when you can avoid it. It does not make sense. When I was working for a company, Red Eye, we were an engineering drawing management platform. Our main competitor was Autodesk. They were in every single business that we were in. And we couldn't simply go head to head with them. They were a multi-billion-dollar company, I believe a Fortune 500 company out of the United States. We simply had to find our competitive advantage and leverage that to get traction in the market. And that all started with lead gen. So you must know where your competitive advantage lies at every stage and do everything in your power to maximize it. If you don't know where your competitive advantage is, your market or your potential clients won't know either. So we have to understand that and leverage that and concentrate on that and continually test where that advantage is so you can actually get people to listen to you in the first place before they become a client. That's really the goal of lead generation, is to get people to listen to what you have to do, what you have to offer. Sorry. Now, it's a fact that consistent effort over a sustained period of time will lead to results. If you don't do consistent effort, your results will be sporadic. You won't learn from what you did last week. You won't be able to apply lessons consistently over time. And inconsistent results will not produce a steady stream of leads. A funny thing happens when it comes to lead generation or sales is if you put in the effort, you will get rewarded from other opportunities. It actually starts breeding opportunities. There's so many occasions when I've started picking up my lead generation effort or doing something, opportunities will come out of left field as some kind of reward. It happens every single time. And you must give your strategies time to work. Like I said, there are short, medium, and long-term strategies. So we have to give the short-term strategies time to work and be aware that they're probably not going to produce significant results. But we have to supplement medium-term and longer-term strategies with those shorter-term strategies until they start kicking in. So what is the right strategy for your business? How do you choose it? Well, first and foremost, we have to go where our ideal clients hang out. If your ideal client is on LinkedIn, great. Maybe that's a great solid foundation to start there in the lead generation process. If you're selling to plumbers or carpenters and they're not on LinkedIn, then that's not the right strategy. So it really depends on where you go fish, where the fish are, where your ideal markets are. And sometimes that revolves around doing research, speaking to ideal clients and asking them where they get their information. Where do they hang out? What conferences do they go to? What platforms do they visit? Are they on LinkedIn? Things like that. Are they on Facebook? Can you identify your ideal buyer on Facebook? Something like that. Now, does that strategy change as you transcend to different markets? If you have a solution that goes across different markets, does your ideal buyer or your ideal client, do they change different platforms or different areas of where they hang out? Because that will change your strategy, your type of strategy that you want to do inside a market. And keep in mind, changing that market may divide your attention as well and divide the amount of effort. And so you can't get the compounding effect also. So you have to be aware of that. And it can also change as you go up the tiers or go down a tier in a market. Tier 3 being a lower tier and tier 1 being a higher tier. Those people in tier 3 may be completely different buyers in tier 1. So we need to be conscious of where that change occurs. Now, we need to know where our competitors have an advantage. I mentioned this before. It does not make sense to compete head to head. If you're a CRM platform and you're trying to compete with HubSpot on SEO or paid advertising or something like that, it does not make sense to go head to head there. They're just so much bigger, have so much more advantage, has so much more content online. You would have to find another way to compete. Maybe that's in your region where you could actually get a foothold in the cities that you actually live. It just depends. We need to figure out where your competitors have an advantage, and first and foremost, don't go to those spaces. Then we need to leverage where you have that advantage. In Australia, in my time, we're an Australian company. Australia's a broad, very large country, but we knew Autodesk was using service providers here in Australia. So they were selling out of the US to these big power utilities, and water utilities, which were our market. So our competitive advantage, first and foremost, was seeing people in Brisbane, because that's where we lived. We could see them a lot more than Autodesk ever could, so in person. And then we started visiting other cities around the country. We would travel all the time because that was our complete competitive advantage. And we could white glove the service that we provided, and we could iterate on our roadmap way quicker than what Autodesk ever would, because they had so many more products and features and platforms. They were doing releases maybe every 6 months, where we would really get our potential clients involved in the product roadmap and show that we were releasing every 2 weeks some kind of functionality update or bug fixes. So it showed them, at least gave the perception that we were iterating the platform way quicker. And that's how we got a foothold in the Australian market. We leveraged that competitive advantage. And Autodesk, in this instance, I'm using that as an example, there was other platforms, they found it very difficult to compete against that. And also, how much time can you prioritize to lead generation every week? Lead generation, as I mentioned before, the truth behind it requires consistent effort over time. So how much can you consistently devote to lead generation activities week in, week out for the next 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months? I've done this before where I've gone, right, I'm going to do lead gen next week. I'm going to do 20 hours of lead generation. But at the end of the day, that's not sustainable, particularly when you start getting results. Then they transition into the sales process, and then some of that time is getting carved out to moving deals through the pipeline. And as a founder, many of you on this call are founders, you are wearing 5 or 6 different hats, if not 7 or 8 different hats on your day-to-day. And lead generation often gets pushed out to one of those activities 4th or 5th on the list, particularly if you're a technical founder. It's not something that people are comfortable doing, so they go, I'll get to it tomorrow. But that inconsistent effort or no effort at all is not going to produce results. Doesn't matter how great your strategy is. If you're not doing the effort, nothing's going to come in. So you have to be able to prioritize lead generation week in, week out. Now, if you're an early morning person, eat that frog, get it done first thing in the morning. Or if you're a mid-afternoon or late night person or afternoon person, get it done where you're the most productive, or where you get distracted the least. Schedule that and then go from there. Now, you have to give your strategies time to produce results. We'll go through the short, medium, long-term strategies in a second. But the worst thing is trying to introduce SEO inside your business and hoping that's going to produce results in the next 2 to 3 months, where the reality is it's not going to produce results probably for at least 6, more likely 12 to 18 to 24 months. So you have to give it time to bed down. So visualize your strategy. If you can visualize it, it helps you tie it together. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in the next slide. So this is an example of a lead generation strategy that I did for a client. So it looks a little bit confusing, but we'll go through it here, where most people would use cold emailing, right? So most people do cold emailing, and they would reach out to people saying, hey, I sell product XYZ. Are you interested? Now, the majority of the market, the reply rate of someone actually interested is probably between 1% and 2, because statistically speaking, them looking for your product at that point in time is very, very low. It's just the luck of the draw whether you find those people. So an alternative strategy to here is one, cold emailing, trying to get leads. But if it's not the right time, maybe we try to get them into some type of group that we manage, or even to a newsletter. I haven't actually drawn a line here. So we can actually continually add value over time. So these across the top here are relative short-term strategies. Then you have medium-term strategies and maybe a longer-term strategy here. But as you go along, you can see here, if we're continually creating these strategies, and then we have our goals. Our primary goal is one, to get a lead to get them to see if they want to buy today. If it's not the right time for them to buy today, we have a secondary goal of trying to, in this case, getting them into a LinkedIn group. My client was managing a LinkedIn group, trying to build out their authority in their space. So they would invite them into the group. So every week they're trying to add in 2 or 3, up to 10 people a week into this LinkedIn group. Then sooner or later that will hit the tipping point and it will start attracting other ideal buyers into that LinkedIn group, where they could actually do value adding activities, webinars into that group, or blog posts and things like that. Now, some of these are grayed out. They don't have the time to do this. And so these are next things on their radar when they get further headcount or free up some time that they can devote to it consistently over the long term. Then they can start incorporating podcasts and other social media like TikTok potentially and things like that. But this actually helps a business, or might help you understand, is, hey, yes, we want clients. Excuse me, my Mac is just playing up. So yes, we want clients, but first we need to get leads. Now, if I can devote a certain amount of time to cold email and LinkedIn, then I can either ask them, do they want the business, or I can start adding them into, or having them become my network. I can add value by giving them content, staying top of mind. And then I can make sure that I have a strategy where I'm diverting them to other areas, so I can actually capture them and bring them into my sphere of influence, or bring them into your sphere of influence, that you can actually build out your network or your community over time. Now, if you deliberately aim to create your community over time, then great things will happen. Imagine you had 10, 20,000 followers for your business or yourself personally over a sustained period of time, who actually listened to you and thought of you as an authority in your space. Finding those leads would be so much easier. Just logically speaking, you'd be in a far better place today than you are, than you would be if you had all those people who were a part of your community. The reality is, not everyone needs what you're selling today, but they may need it in the next 2 or 3 months or years. So we want to try to stay front of mind and capture them, so we're their first choice when they need it. Right. So what I want to do here is I want to cover the 20 different lead generation strategies quickly. What I'm going to do here, though, is, don't worry about taking screenshots or anything like that. I've just released a takeaway. Now, the takeaway has all these strategies in a document PDF. So feel free to download that, take a copy. So first and foremost we'll talk about the short-term strategies, which is cold email. Now, obviously, it's a short-term strategy. Now, the benefits are, these are the advantages and disadvantages. The benefits are, you get quick feedback. You can iterate quickly. If you're not getting the responses from your market, you have the ability to quickly iterate, and you can use software to give you significant time back in your day. You can spend an hour setting up a cadence on something like Apollo or Clanty or Sales Gear, and you could turn that 1 hour of effort into hours and hours of productivity by sending countless amount of emails out. Now, the downside of that is it's a crowded space. So many people are doing cold email these days. Even myself, when I get cold email from people, I can just see straight through it, and it's disengaging. More people are using AI to do this today. I would say don't use AI. People can tell the difference with that. It's disingenuous. Now, it requires research time to be effective. Research the company, research the markets you're in, and also requires software to be able to do this effectively. Touch points of 4 to 5 email sequences or cadences is really what's needed to get people to engage with you. Now you've got cold calling, which is, again, it gives you instant feedback. How I started my lead generation journey, I started with cold emailing to figure out my messaging and got that right. And then once I couldn't scale that anymore, once I was at the capacity for making the calls and I was getting a consistent result to move to a discovery call, then I started putting that into cold email to see if I got the same message. Because it helped me connect to people a lot quicker than cold email would. But the downside of cold email is it's fear invoking. Not many people are comfortable with it. There are people are accustomed to cold calling and they have no fear in saying no. It can actually stop people dead in their tracks from being effective. But in doing that, if you can overcome that fear, it's really beneficial. Then you have Facebook groups like LinkedIn, whereas you can actually have a one-to-many approach. If you can get people inside your group or you can join a few groups on LinkedIn, it will allow you to do a one-to-many approach where with posts or outreach with people who are in the same field that you want to target as well. But it may not target buyers, particularly on Facebook. It's hard to isolate buyers on that platform as well if you need to find key decision makers. Now, obviously, there's advertising. It helps you get into publications that your ideal buying profile might read and helps you target specific buying personas. But there's also a significant cost. That's getting harder and harder these days to do this in a cost-effective way. And you're competing against other competitors. And if you're in a publication, a print publication, it's periodic. So although it sits in that magazine for a period of time, you don't have a chance to add to more to that, maybe only quarterly, monthly, or yearly. Now, other short-term to medium-term strategies are LinkedIn. So obviously you can directly connect with people on LinkedIn and start growing your network. I myself met many of you through a recent LinkedIn connection where I worked for other people for many years before I decided to start Sales Market Fit. A lot of my audience were asset managers and engineering managers from when I worked at Red Eye and other industries. I was around the enterprise and water utility, power utility space. So a strategy, it's actually a medium to longer term strategy, is I have to dilute those connections in my LinkedIn. So I need to deliberately connect with people on a weekly basis to grow my the people that I want to meet and add value to over a longer period of time. And I can only do that over consistent effort over a long period of time. So for me, that's a 3 to 4 year strategy. Every week, week out, week in, week out, I connect to founders just like yourself to try to add value in their market. Now, the other part of that strategy is devising a group, building a group. And it can actually, LinkedIn's a great platform for doing short, medium, or longer term strategies. So you get overlapping benefit from that as well. Again, it's crowded with many lead generation companies. We all get bombarded by companies trying to connect under false pretenses and then a second later trying to sell you something. I'd be very careful about being disingenuous on the platform. It's hard to stand out from others. Decision makers are not always active on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn every day, our buyers may only log in once a week or once every 2 weeks. So it can take a while for them to come back to you as well. So in any strategy like this, if someone is interested in talking to you, I would get off the platform as quick as I can. Again, and decision makers can get spammed in this space as well. So we want to be very careful not to spam. Now, the conferences and trade shows, it's a short to medium term strategy. Now, one of the biggest advantages of conferences is you can find your ideal markets really quickly and you can speak to many people. I remember one conference, I used to do the conference season every year, and it gave us the ability to test our messaging very, very quickly, to iterate and go, oh, now we understood the value. Let's talk in the value. So we were testing different value messages until it resonated with a group of people. And then we started growing our leads quite quickly from that. But conferences allowed us to quickly speak to our ideal buyers and target markets way quicker than normal than you would on cold calling and things like that. It allowed us to get instant feedback. Now the conferences are getting way more costly these days. It's also seasonal and you need to be pre-planned. you need to have a lot of pre-planning to be truly effective. Obviously, networking events, the advantage is at face-to-face, but it's often done after hours and it doesn't scale. So it's an okay short to medium-term strategy, but it's definitely not a long-term strategy. It's not going to give you time back at the end of the day. Mentoring. So there are plenty of mentoring platforms around these days, like Growth Mentor, other platforms like that. It's a great way if you're a coach or a founder and you want to meet your ideal clients, is providing value to the market by mentoring certain people and giving them, giving first and then seeing how that goes. I did a lot of this. I still do a lot of this where I mentor first and then out of that, hopefully leads will come, and it's giving back, the law of reciprocity. Again, it doesn't scale and it requires continuous improvement, which is it's not a long-term strategy, because at the end you want your strategies to scale. And again, maybe creating a TikTok channel, depending on your market. It will allow you to target people, depending on if you're a complex B2B platform, it's probably not your ideal platform. Referral engines are definitely something that you should think about. But again, it's a short to a longer term strategy. You need to get clients through their pipeline and then go through the valley of despair, out to the other side, see the real value of your platform, and then refer you. And that helps transfer credibility from one client to the next. And it's a cost-effective lead generation. It doesn't cost much to do. And it builds a strong amount of trust because someone's a follower and has already seen the benefits inside their business. Now, the downside is you need clients to be happy. You can't ask a client for a referral while they're not happy, or they're still going through an implementation process or a change management process. So we have to understand the valley of despair and when they come out as a delighted customer on the other side. And it does require a deliberate strategy. People don't automatically refer, particularly in the B2B space. They've got their own worries going on. It's not a natural thing. Or the conservative approach is we have to think it's not a natural occurrence. We have to deliberately plan for it. Now, obviously podcasts are a short and long-term strategy. Short-term strategy, going on as a guest. You can connect with your target markets if there's podcasts that are specifically for your target market. It can help you demonstrate authority in your space, and podcasts can be listened to indefinitely. That's a real advantage as well. Now, it can take time to build momentum. Alex Hormozi, for those of you who know Alex Hormozi, he did a podcast for 4 years before he got any traction, and now he's taken off to be one of the leading authorities for sales in online today. Now, it can be time consuming, and if you do create the podcast, which is a longer term strategy, it can take a while to build an audience. So that's why it's a longer term strategy there. Now, outsourcing lead generation seems like a really good idea for people who are not strong in sales, like a technical founder. It is true there's some really strong advantages. You have a professional process that if you can learn from, it's really good. They have the strategies and the team in place. They can produce quick results once tuned into your market, and they can help you learn up-to-date strategies. So they're all the positives that you can learn from a lead generation company. Now, the negatives are it can be costly, and it needs substantial oversight in the beginning, because if you don't provide direction and outcomes that you want, then they'll provide their own. And we want to make sure you have a strategy that works and you know the strategy. Hey, we want to use this message here. We communicate this specific value. We want these ideal buyers. Because if you don't, it's very difficult to get them to follow the strategy, because you'll end up getting a lot of leads, but those leads may not transition into sales. I've had that experience at Redeye when we were looking to, we got a foothold into the United States. And because it was such a big market, we used a lead generation company to approach the market. But there was a change in leadership there. The vice president of American operations come in without a sales background, didn't coach them enough. And sure, it seemingly got a lot of leads, but 0 people who were going to buy. So it's a fraud. You're going to be very careful using this strategy. I'm not saying it's not a bad strategy, but you should know how to get leads in the business first, so you can teach them what exactly works and what doesn't. Now, obviously, marketing, it helps amplify the message of already what is working to convert clients. It helps you have greater reach. If you're a founder going in doing founder-led sales and you know this repeated messaging works, then using marketing to amplify that message is a great technique. It has potential organic growth over time. Now, it takes a while to bear fruit as well. So it can't be a short-term strategy. It can be used in the wrong way. If someone on the ground, a sales team or a founder, hasn't found the voice of the customer and the messaging that works, and then marketing, and because they haven't found it and marketing tries without actually having the voice of the customer, it can be a lot of wasted effort and lackluster results. So sales and marketing here must work hand in hand together. They are both far stronger working together than they are separately. But and one of the disadvantages here is sometimes it can be thought of as a magic bullet, and it's not the case. They need to be given just as much guidance to know what actually works in getting clients interested in what you're selling. So building a community, I've mentioned that before in that strategy. We won't cover that again. Again, building a YouTube channel. It's the second biggest search platform in the world. It can take a bit of time to build an audience organically. You see a lot of B2B companies, they'll think starting a YouTube channel is really good, and they'll put a couple of videos up. You'll see they have 2 or 3 people following. They get 1 or 2 video views on their videos when they release it. It's because they haven't dedicated the right amount of time. They've started it and haven't continued on. It takes a long time to create a good YouTube channel. Obviously, affiliate programs only cost you money once you have paying clients. It's highly scalable growth channel, but does take a considerable amount of time to get going. You need a good product and affiliate offer. It won't work with starting companies. Now, if you're interested in knowing more about affiliate programs, I'm planning a webinar, hopefully planning a webinar coming up on affiliate programs for B2B startups. If that interests you, let me know, and I'll make sure I get that scheduled. Now, SEO, we're almost at the end here. It's a medium to long-term strategy. Once optimized, you don't have to pay for visitors to your site. But again, this isn't a quick fix. It takes time. So if you're going to rely on SEO for a short and medium-term strategy, you're probably not going to bear fruit for 18 to 24 months, 12 months, 18, 24 months. So you have to have supplementary short and medium-term strategies to pick up the slack until that starts kicking in. Obviously, company acquisition, we won't go into that. And one of the biggest ones as a founder any founder on this call is become an authority in your space. But it's a long-term strategy. Now, we only have to look at the likes of Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, Alex Hormozi, for those of you who know him, who's had a meteoric rise in the last 18 to 24 months. They've become an authority in their space. Now, once they become an authority in their space, leads, I would imagine, are coming to them. Opportunities are coming to them. It's a great way to build an inbound lead process. It creates customer loyalty. It requires effort to build authority. It's a great tactic to utilize long after you transition out of founder-led sales. But it takes time to build your credibility and requires effort. The sales team will not focus on this strategy. This is a strategy that's going to require 3 years to 5 years to come to fruition. With the length of employment these days, a salesperson cannot guarantee they're going to be inside a business for greater than 24 months. A goal, as me being a salesperson, my goal primarily was to be there for longer than 12. And then we'll see if I can get to 24. And then after that, I was like, I should have cemented on trying to become an authority in my space. Well, I can't guarantee I'm going to be here for another year or 3 years. I'm not going to bother. This is a founder tactic or founder strategy alone, or the founders inside the business. Becoming authority in your space will only ever be a founder strategy. Now, I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions so far about where we're up to, or does anyone want to cover anything that I've just covered in those 20 strategies before we move on? I'll give it a minute there. And I've got the results of the poll here. 71% said yeah, they get distracted from regular lead gen activities, and 28% said no, which is fantastic. All right. So if anyone has any questions, please type them in there and I'll stop and I'll answer it, but we'll keep moving. So there are really only 3 factors that you can control when it comes to lead generation. And that is, the first is effort. If you don't do enough effort, it doesn't matter how great your strategy is, you're just not going to get enough leads coming through the door. You can use WhatsApp if that's what works, and that's where your target market sits, and you can identify your target market through WhatsApp, then go for it. So if that's where your target market is, sorry, Graham, I was just reading yours. So the best way to identify unique value and offer is understanding the levers that will cause your client to take action. So businesses typically take action for one of 3 reasons: 1, to generate revenue; 2, to reduce operational cost; and 3, to reduce risk, some type of risk inside their business. And it's in that order. So your real value is, how do you pull those levers with the value that you offer? Now, I'm not sure what you're selling there, Graham, but if you go to a hardware store, you don't want the drill, you want the hole the drill will give you. So what outcome do your clients get from implementing your solution inside their business? Does it increase revenue? Does it reduce cost? Does it reduce risk? And it's framing your value around that to get a client to take action first, or first and foremost, listen to you first, and then start the engagement process through discovery, and then going through that process. That's with my founders program, or sales market fit strategy. So I'm a firm believer in product market fit alone is not enough to get B2B businesses to buy you. You have to align your sales effort to how your target markets buy. And a key part of this, a fundamental first principle in any sale, in any situation, whether it's consumer or B2B, is value must exist before a purchase will occur. Significant value must exist before a purchase will occur. Now, if you're a startup, in my mind, the way to turn that into an easier yes decision to buy you is demonstrate demonstrable value, somewhere between 10 to 20x. And that's relatively easy to demonstrate through direct and indirect cost. So, and that's what I coach other founders and startups on, is actually understanding their unique value, and then how to lead their client through their buying journey as quick as they can to get to a yes outcome or a buying outcome. If you want to have a strategy call on that, Graham, happy to do that. I'll just turn on a strategy session. Anyone on the call today, if you want to have a sales strategy session about your business, please book in a free call here. We can go through what you're doing today, and I can give you some insight. If it makes sense to continue to working together, great. If it doesn't, hopefully I'll help you on your way to start identifying that unique session, your unique value, and how to do that. Can you leverage content development on LinkedIn, other channels? Yeah, absolutely. Connecting with people on LinkedIn and then writing content to help them and demonstrate your domain expertise will hopefully get people to engage with you and come to things like a webinar. Like I messaged most of you through LinkedIn about lead generation and invited you to this webinar. So it's a version of that. If you have a look on my profile here, and I have a lot of content about sales strategy, lead generation strategy, that's from a differentiated point of view. So absolutely. And that comes down to the effort part, is what effort? Doing consistent effort, understanding how much effort that you can apply on a week-to-week basis, and then basing your strategy around that. Now, the second lever that we can pull here is target. So our targets, who are we targeting? Anthony, the question here is, I'll come back to that at the end, Anthony. So we'll go through this and then I'll answer that for sure. But that's a great question. So the second one here is effort. Now, that's the easiest one for us to increase. So first and foremost, what I say is, can you dedicate 4 hours a week, 6 hours a week, 8 hours a week to lead generation? You can't do 100%. You may be able to do that, fluctuate up and down, but upping your effort is the easiest way to increase your lead generation results. And then that notwithstanding, target is the next one. Our targets. Who are we targeting? If you're approaching B2B, you have an option of going in low in an organization, medium to middle management, or to senior management, depending on what you're selling. Depends on the strategy or the sales strategy that you might try. There are advantages of both, of going high and going low, and there's disadvantages as well. It's about what you're trying to sell and exploring the hypothesis around it. Like Atlassian learned very, very quickly to go in low to the dev team, start building out relationships there, and then they move across in the enterprise. And that sales strategy worked. So, and the third one is skill. What skill do you have when it comes to, getting people, what you mentioned there before, Graham, about how do you identify your unique value and offer? That comes down to skill. So and your skill, or how you identify, in your case, Graham, your unique value and offer will change. It will change when you change who you target inside an organization. So the thing about value is, what you find valuable and what I find valuable can be completely different things. Value sits in the eye of the beholder. Just because if you're a founder, Graham, and you think it's valuable on the platform, it does not matter unless the client thinks it's valuable. Now, it's your job to communicate that value in a way that makes it compelling, and them to go, oh, wow, I never thought about that. But value sits in the eye of the beholder. So you change your value conversation and maybe not your offer, but your value conversation, depending on who you're targeting inside your target organizations that you're chasing. But you really only learn the nuance of changing that value when you do enough effort, right? If you don't have enough effort, you'll never learn those lessons, and you'll never make consistent improvement through your lead generation process. Now, as I mentioned, effort's easiest to improve, and then it's about testing and iterating to optimize over time. Now, I caution here, don't automate too quickly. Now, if you automate too quickly, you lose the ability to get feedback from the market, and we need the feedback. Did I position that value conversation the right way to get them to take action to the next step? And that comes down to your strategy. Or did they just go, yep, okay, that seems great, but didn't take any action? Then the value point that we tried to make there didn't hit the mark. Now, you must have the right strategy to maximize every lead. You have to know their buying journey. In my experience, clients don't automatically buy, particularly if you're selling something of high value or a complex value. You have to lead the client through their journey so you can highlight their problems inside their business first, and then show your solution and offer how it will suit them in their particular case. Don't do what everyone else is doing. If you're doing what everyone else is doing, what your competitors are doing, you're going to get the same results. If someone comes to you and asks you for a price on what you're doing, and they're doing going around to getting 3 quotes, and you just give them a price, give them information, they're probably not going to come back, right? Chances that you've just given up your destiny or your control of the sales process to somebody else. You've got to differentiate yourself from the beginning, and that starts with lead generation. Be different. Cement yourself as an authority in your space, as a problem subject matter expert, and that comes down with your skill and effort and demonstrating your domain expertise to the targets that you're targeting. Right. So I'm just going to flick across here. I just want to show you how much effort is actually required with cold email. Now, because cold email is a crowded space, and technology is making it easily for people to utilize this strategy, it's getting harder to get results, right? And startups underestimate how much effort is required to get lead generation results. Now, statistically, there are less than about 5%. I think it's closer to 2 to 3% of clients might be looking for what you're selling at any one time. So, and the law of diminishing returns exists when it comes to cold email. Now, what I've done here, I've got this cold email activity calculator. Now, I'll come back to this in a second, but this is if something takes you 3 months to close, we'll come back to that. Now, let's just say you had a annual sales target of $1 million, but your average deal size was $10,000. Now that means you need 100 deals to close to hit your $1 million target, or if you're submitting formal proposals and only 80% are getting taken up, you need 125 proposals to go out on an annual basis. Well, that's 11 per month or 3 per week. Okay. So I've got these ratios here in a pipeline as an example. So this is 80% of deals won from proposals sent out. Now that seems like a high number. Most people send out proposals after a demo and they mostly fizzle. I would recommend doing that differently when it comes to sales strategy. Now, if you go down to doing a demo and it turns into a qualified opportunity, yes, they're looking for it's about 40%. Again, that could be high. It could be as low as 25%. 1 in 4 people you demo to may actually want to buy at a $10,000 price point. That's still relatively high. But if you go a number of outbound sequences to initial meetings book is 5%, which is, it's not too bad. The average of a reply rate for people to come back to you is 9%. And then of that, half again may be interested in having a meeting is 5%. It could be as low as 3%, but we'll stick to 5 now. And if you want to have 20% coverage on your pipeline, so this tells us per annum, just going through here, you need to send out 12,000 sequences to contacts. So that's 12,000 contacts to outbound sequences to which is 233 a week, 40 a day, if not a little bit longer, a little bit more, to have a chance of hitting your metrics. Now, if that reduces from 5% to 3% to meetings booked, which is probably a little bit closer, then you're looking at 20,000 cold email outbounds to send out, which is 389 a week. So that strategy alone, the reason to bring that up is just to show you, if you have just a cold email strategy alone, it'd be very difficult to hit your sales targets unless you're spamming so many people. And maybe your target market in B2B in the regions that you're targeting are not that large. You don't have a target market base of 20,000 people. So I just wanted to show you why it's difficult to just rely on cold email as a strategy. All right. Now, so I just want to circle back here. So this is basically the end of what we spoke about. So what I really wanted to do is highlight, I wanted to highlight the truths, what the actual truths are needed for you to create a successful lead generation strategy, and to understand that, or to change your beliefs that it's actually quite a difficult process and requires a consistent effort over time. And that's going to change your behavior. And then because you're going to change your behavior, you're going to change your process. And that's what the best chance is of giving you success and helping you smash those revenue goals that you have in your business. Now, what we're doing here as well is we're actually creating a lead generation bootcamp for startups to start 2024 off really strongly towards the end of the year, get good habits, get good processes and a good strategy in place, and then start working on those processes. So if you're having a trouble developing an effective strategy, if you're getting distracted at other hats that you're wearing, or if you have revenue goals that you must achieve in 2024, I consider going on a wait list because we're actually interviewing founders to see what they're missing and deep diving in what they want to see in a boot camp like this. And I'm just releasing a wait list here. If you're interested, or if you don't mind if we interview about what challenges you're having in the lead generation space, if you want to fill out that Google form there, give us your name, we'll book in a time, and we can also let you know when this strategy comes up. So we'll be running a 60-day bootcamp, and we'll be helping you develop a strategy and a process in place, get that into your calendar and devote that time to get you set up to start good habits in late 23, early 24, so you can hit the ground running. Right. And also creating a white paper on developing a strategy as well. And we'll go from there. So now, if anyone has any questions, I will come back to your question as well, Anthony. Should we focus all our attention on intros into our network in the beginning, or should we focus on doing things like cold calling as well? It depends on the time that you have, Anthony. Like, I think that you should try to start multiple different streams of leads, but not if you don't have the time to do it sustainably. Um, Often networks will only go so far, but even if you're speaking to people in those networks who you get referred to, and you make it a question in those conversations, if you get there, is there anyone in your network that you could introduce me to, or you think that I should know, to try to turn that one referral person in your network into two, and then always try to add that strategy on. But maybe it's, if you can do cold calling, fantastic. If that's what you're comfortable doing, if it's about posting more on LinkedIn, it's about creating a community. Reddit, some people are on Reddit. I would just, again, base it on the amount of time that you have per week. If you're comfortable on cold calling, go for it. You'll get your quickest results. Now, does anyone have any other questions? I think there might be another one here. Yes, Graham. No worries, Anthony. Now, that's all I had. That's all I had for today. In conclusion, download that document, the takeaway. It'll give you all the pros, advantages and disadvantages of what we spoke about today. Again, if you have any questions or you want to do a strategies deep dive on your business, happy to do that. Please book in a call. If you want to go on a wait list, we really appreciate it, and we'll keep in contact. And yeah, thank you very much for today. No worries, Richard. Thanks for attending. When you're planning the bootcamp, so we're still doing our planning on that, Graham. So in the next, probably we're starting towards the end of November or early January, just depends. We're just doing some research at the moment. But yeah, we'll if you want to reach out, we'll have a chat, and we're just putting it together now. Thanks, Hiran. No worries, Anthony. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.